Police in Washington, D.C. have arrested a suspect after two National Guard members were critically injured in a shooting about 2 blocks from the White House. Now, authorities say both troops were victims of a targeted shooting. We'll get you all the details on the show today.
Well, also on the show today, supporters of Imran Khan are seeking answers from Field Marshal Asim Munir and Pakistan government on the state of Imran Khan after a post on social media of his murder in jail go viral. We'll unpack all this and more on the show today, but first, a quick check on the headlines.
Death toll from the Hong Kong high-rise fire rises to at least 44, with the blaze still burning. Hundreds of people remain missing in the city's worst fire in decades. Now, police arrest 3 suspects.
US President Donald Trump orders deployment of 500 additional troops to Washington, D.C. after a shooting near White House leave 2 National Guard members in a critical condition. Suspected gunman has been taken into custody.
Russia says talks to end the war in Ukraine are serious, though a deal is still distant. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov adds that US envoy Steve Witkoff is set to visit Moscow next week for further negotiations.
US plans to expand troop deployment to fight drug trafficking as Dominican Republic agrees to let Washington use its facilities for the operations. Now, Pentagon Chief Exet urges other countries to allow US forces as well.
Donald Trump says South Africa will not be invited to next year's G20 summit in Miami, escalating his diplomatic offensive against the country, citing human rights abuses and refusal to hand over the G20 presidency.
Israel's military launches new operation against Palestinian armed groups in occupied West Bank, raiding several towns after the army says it received intelligence about attempts to establish terrorist strongholds.
PTI wraps up sit-in outside Rawalpindi's Daila jail over Imran Khan's sisters being denied a meeting. However, Alima Khan says authorities have not responded and insists that the family be allowed to see him.
Military officials in Guinea-Bissau say that they have seized total control of the country, arresting its president, closing its borders and suspending its electoral process 3 days after general elections.
Residential rents in Hong Kong reached record highs, driven by increased demand from mainland China, even as the global real estate market slowed. After a little increase from August, rental price index reached its highest point since records began in 1993 in the month of September.
Formula One design icon Adrian Newey will take over as Aston Martin's team principal next year. The 66-year-old succeeds Andy Cowell, who transitions into the team's new position of Chief Strategy Officer. Right, our top focus at this hour, 2 National Guard soldiers were shot by a lone gunman near the White House, sending shockwaves through the nation's capital.
Now, both soldiers were rushed to the hospital and are said to be in a critical condition. Authorities have confirmed that the suspect is now in custody after being wounded during the confrontation.
Now, eyewitnesses captured the dramatic aftermath of a shooting which unfolded near Farragut Square, a busy lunch spot for office workers just blocks from the White House. Now, officials confirmed that Two members of the National Guard were shot in what is being described as a targeted attack. The incident prompted an immediate lockdown of the White House. And at the time of the attack, President Trump was at his Palm Beach resort in Florida ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance was in Kentucky.
Now, according to reports, a Justice Department official told investigators have identified the suspect as Rahman Ullah Lakwanwal, a 29-year-old Afghan national from Washington state. The official added that the attack is being investigated as an act of terrorism.
Now, in a social media post, President Trump had condemned the suspected shooter, calling him an animal who would pay a very steep price. He also praised the service and sacrifice of the National Guard.
At approximately 2:15 this afternoon, members of the D.C. National Guard were on high visibility patrols in the area of 17th and I Street Northwest when a suspect came around the corner, raised his arm with a firearm, and discharged it at the National Guard members. Within moments, members of law enforcement in the area were also able to assist and bring that individual into custody. The National Guard members are being treated at a local hospital. D.C. Fire and EMS responded to the scene to provide first aid for those individuals and transport them to a local hospital. The suspect in this case was also transported for treatment at a local hospital.
What we know, Andrea, is that this is a targeted shooting. One individual who appeared to target these guardsmen, that individual has been taken into custody.
An eyewitness said that the atmosphere immediately after the shooting was tense and unsettling. He noted that the incident could lead to a stronger military and police presence across the city.
Not really, didn't see blood. I think it was a little bit too far for that being across the street. However, we did hear them working on somebody and they were doing chest compressions on one of the National Guard men. And then there was another one that was on the ground that looked like he was a little bit closer to the suspect.
Well, another video showed a helicopter, police and emergency vehicles converging on the scene following the shooting incident.
Now, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth announced that President Donald Trump has directed the deployment of 500 additional National Guard troops to Washington, D.C.
In fact, this happened just steps away from the White House. It will not stand. And that's why President Trump has asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army to the National Guard, to add 500 additional troops, National Guardsmen, to Washington, D.C. This will only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we make Washington, D.C. safe and beautiful.
And for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Take a look.
Two members of the National Guard were shot just blocks away from the White House on Thanksgiving Eve in what officials are calling a targeted ambush. The Guardsmen were on a high visibility patrol when a lone gunman approached them and opened fire. The suspect has been taken into custody. The motives are unclear. The attack triggered a brief lockdown at the White House complex and temporarily halted flights into Reagan National Airport as police secured the area. President Trump, who's in Florida, condemned the shooting, calling the suspect a quote-unquote animal, and ordered additional National Guard deployment to Washington. Authorities say there is currently no threat, but the investigation remains active and, of course, has only just begun. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
The death toll from Hong Kong's high-rise fire has risen to at least 44 dead, with hundreds more still unaccounted for.
Well, police have arrested 3 men on suspicion of manslaughter as investigators probe how the fire spread so quickly through the massive residential complex.
Police have identified 3 individuals responsible from the construction company, 2 directors, and 1 engineering consultant. Earlier, at around 2 a.m., we arrested 3 local men in Tai Po, Ngao Tau Kok, and San Po Kong districts on suspicion of manslaughter. They are aged between 52 and 68 and remain in police custody for investigation.
Now, the fire broke out on Wednesday afternoon at Wang Fuk Court, which is an 8-building complex in the city's northern district of Tai Po and has 2,000 apartment units. Massive flames first erupted on bamboo scaffolding surrounding buildings undergoing estate-wide maintenance. Now, within minutes, smoke engulfed several towers, sending ash and debris high into the sky.
Well, 4 of the 8 blocks have been declared under control, but operations continue in the others. Investigators say foam insulation, sealed windows and protective mesh sheeting used on the building's exterior all contributed to the uncontrollable spread.
More than 900 residents are now seeking refuge at temporary shelters. Authorities say they cannot confirm how many people are missing, as family members continue to report loved ones unaccounted for.
I am devastated. There are so many neighbors and friends. I do not know what is going on anymore. Look, all the apartments are just burning. I do not know what to do. I hope the government can help us to settle down after this.
Hong Kong's leader wrongly offered condolences to those affected and said that the incident is being taken by the authorities with utmost seriousness.
While Chinese President Xi Jinping urged an all-out effort to extinguish the fire in a residential complex in Hong Kong and to minimize casualties and losses.
Well, these are the live visuals that we're getting from Hong Kong, where the rescue efforts are still underway. From the reports, we understand that 4 out of the 8 buildings have been under control and the fire has been tamed, whereas the other 4 buildings, the rescue operations still continue. And several members of the U.S. House of Representatives have expressed outrage over a leaked recording.
Now, in the recordings, a U.S. envoy allegedly advised Moscow on how to manage President Donald Trump. Don Bacon, who is a Republican representative, called for Steve Witkoff's immediate dismissal. Democratic Representative Ted Lieu called Witkoff an actual traitor, adding that Witkoff is supposed to work for U.S. and not for Russia.
While Bloomberg released transcripts of a 14th October phone call between Witkoff and Yuri Ushakov, who is Vladimir Putin's top foreign policy aide. And according to the transcript, Witkoff told Ushakov that peace would require Moscow gaining control of Donetsk and potentially additional Ukrainian territory. Witkoff also gave Ushakov tactical advice, including how the Russian leader should approach the issue with Donald Trump.
Now, it included suggestions about scheduling a Trump-Putin phone call before the planned visit of the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to the White House.
On Wednesday, Ushakov appeared to confirm the call's authenticity to Russian state television. He said that some are fake and others will not comment on. Witkoff is yet to issue a statement, but Trump has defended him, hailing him as a good deal maker.
Have you heard this audio that Bloomberg has of Witkoff coaching the Russians on how to appeal to you?
Well, I haven't heard it, no, but that's a standard thing, because he's got to sell this to Ukraine. He's got to sell Ukraine to Russia. That's what a deal maker does. You got to say, look, they want this, you got to convince them with this. You know, that's a very standard form of negotiation.
Trump also said they're making progress on a revised plan that would award Ukraine more of its demand. Now, Trump announced earlier on Tuesday he's sending Witkoff to Moscow to meet Putin and the U.S. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll to meet Ukrainian officials.
As diplomatic efforts to end the war rumbled on, Ukraine reported another night of air attacks. A Russian drone attack on the southern Ukrainian region of Zaporizhzhia overnight left more than a dozen wounded and damaged tens of homes.
Amid the Ukraine released footage allegedly showing its fighting in Pokrovsk, Reuters confirmed the location as northern Pokrovsk by the buildings, signs, road layout and infrastructure which matched satellite and file imagery. Now, the date when the video was filmed could not be independently verified. Tensions are once again intensifying across West Asia.
Well, Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, has warned that there will be no calm in Lebanon unless Israel's security is fully guaranteed.
His remarks come as Israeli forces ramp up operations despite a year-old ceasefire with Hezbollah, raising fears of a broader regional spillover.
We will not allow any threat to the residents of the North, and maximum enforcement will continue and even deepen, as we clearly demonstrated a few days ago with the assassination of Hezbollah Chief of Staff Haytham Ali Tabatabai. There will be no calm in Beirut, nor order or stability in Lebanon without security for the State of Israel.
Well, Egypt, meanwhile, is urging restraint. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati has said that Cairo will use all its regional and international contacts to protect Lebanon from further escalation and to help defuse the looming crisis.
We are fully concerned with Lebanon's stability and with the importance of a complete Israeli withdrawal from all Lebanese territories and the implementation of UN Resolution 1701 in all its clauses and aspects without selectivity, which naturally requires an immediate halt to all Israeli violations of Lebanese sovereignty.
Amid rising tensions, Israel's military has launched a fresh operation targeting Palestinian armed groups in the occupied West Bank. The army, police and internal security service are leading the sweep, which follows days of violent clashes between Israeli settlers and Palestinians. Now, the overnight operation is focused on the largely agriculture Tubas region, the northeastern, most of the West Bank's 11 governorates. The IDF says it's acting proactively to prevent future attacks, offering no additional details for now, but promising a comprehensive report later.
Now, militant groups Hamas and Islamic Jihad have condemned the operation. Hamas issued a statement calling the move part of a policy which is aimed at crushing any Palestinian presence to achieve a complete control over the West Bank. Today, more than 700,000 Israelis live in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, territories that Israel captured in 1967. And which the Palestinians seek for a future state.
In Gaza, Hamas is calling on mediating countries to pressure Israel to allow safe passage for dozens of its fighters trapped in tunnels beneath the southern Gaza Strip. The appeal follows an Israeli military announcement saying it had killed more than 20 Hamas members in the past week who had attempted to flee from what it described as underground terror infrastructure. Now, for the first time, Hamas has publicly acknowledged that some of its fighters are trapped underground.
And the war of words over Taiwan is escalating. China has issued a warning. It will crush any foreign attempts to interfere.
Now, this after Japan announced plans to deploy missiles near the island. On Sunday, Japan's defense minister has announced that Tokyo was moving forward with plans to deploy a missile system on Yonaguni, the country's westernmost island located 110 kilometers off Taiwan's east coast. Now, China has blasted the announcement, describing Japan's plan as a deliberate attempt to create regional tension and provoke military confrontation. 2 days later, it has issued a sterner warning.
Taiwan is China's Taiwan. We will never allow external forces to interfere in China's Taiwan region, and we will never allow Japanese militarism to stage a comeback. We have a firm will, strong determination, and a strong ability to defend our national sovereignty and territorial integrity and crush all plots of external interference.
The recent war of words has erupted after remarks by Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, who suggested that Tokyo could intervene militarily in any Chinese attack on Taiwan. But she has also said that Japan hopes to build a better and comprehensive relationship with China.
Japan has always been open to a constructive dialogue with China. Therefore, it is my responsibility to maximum our national interest and build an even better, comprehensive relationship through dialogue from now on.
The latest comments came a day after she received a phone call from the US President Donald Trump. Now, Trump had earlier dialed Chinese President Xi Jinping. According to Chinese Foreign Ministry, Taiwan featured prominently during Xi's call with Trump. Xi told Trump that Taiwan's return was an integral part of the post-war international border.
Now, according to China's Foreign Ministry, Trump told Xi during the call that the US understands how important the Taiwan question is for China. However, the issue of Taiwan found no mention in his Truth Social post on his discussions with Xi. It just praised extremely strong US-China relations.
Now, this has raised speculations over Washington's support to Taiwan. Now, however, Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te says that ties with the US are rock solid.
Since President Trump assumed his second term in office, Taiwan's cooperation with the United States has not been interrupted, stopped, or diminished, but has continued to strengthen. So, we are confident in the future relationship between Taiwan and the United States because it will benefit the common interests of Taiwan and the United States, as well as the overall interests of the region.
Lai Ching-te has claimed that China is speeding up its military preparations to take the island by force. He has also proposed $40 billion in additional defense spending over the next 8 years. Lai said the military aimed to have a high level of joint combat readiness against China by 2027, which US officials have previously cited as a possible timeline for a Chinese attack on the island.
Military has declared a complete takeover in Guinea-Bissau just days after a presidential election.
Well, the announcement came shortly after witnesses heard gunfire near the Election Commission building. Moments after the gunfire, military officials began a patrol in the area near Guinea-Bissau's presidential palace. Then came the announcement. Chief of Presidential Military has declared that the country is now under total control of the army.
The announcement confirms a military coup in Guinea-Bissau. The senior official also declared that all land and maritime borders as well as national airspace will be closed. The country's president, Umaro Mukhtar Sissoko Embalo, has also been disposed by the army.
The High Military Command for the Restoration of National Security and Public Order has decided to immediately depose the President of the Republic and, until further orders, to shut down all institutions of the Republic of Guinea-Bissau.
Embalo was serving as the president since 2020 and had contested in the recent elections again for another term in power.
Voters cast their ballots just 3 days ago on November 23rd, and counting began the very next day. The poll body was expected to announce a provisional result on November 27th, but everything changed before that.
Well, residents of Guinea-Bissau hoped for stability and development during the election process. But with the military coup happening hours ago, there is uncertainty around the country's political future now. And with that, it's time for us to slip into a very short break on World DNA.
Coming up on the other side of World DNA, the sit-in at the Gorakhpur checkpost near Adiala jail led by Imran Khan's sister Alima Khan and Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf PTI supporters has been wrapped up. One of Imran's sisters said that the family would continue its efforts to meet the jailed ex-premier.
Also coming up on the other side, a surge in militant attacks and instability in northern Nigeria is driving hunger to record levels. The UN has projected nearly 35 million people could face severe hunger in Nigeria by the middle of next year. All this and more coming up on the other side of World DNA. Stay tuned. You're watching Beyond World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Welcome back. You're watching World DNA with Adya and Diksha. We have lots lined up for you on this side of the show as well. But first, a quick check on the headlines.
US President Donald Trump condemns the shooting of 2 National Guard troops near the White House as an act of terror and orders 500 additional troops to Washington, D.C. Police identify suspected as Afghan man.
Death toll from the Hong Kong high-rise fire rises to at least 44, with the blaze still burning. Hundreds of people remain missing in the city's worst fire in decades. Police arrests 3 suspects.
Russia says talks to end the war in Ukraine are serious, though a deal is still distant. Kremlin spokesperson adds that US envoy Steve Witkoff is set to visit Moscow next week for further negotiations.
US plans to expand troop deployment to fight drug trafficking as Dominican Republic agrees to let Washington use its facilities for the operations. Pentagon Chief Hegseth urges other countries to allow US forces as well.
PTI wraps up sit-in outside Rawalpindi's Adiala jail over Imran Khan's sisters being denied a meeting. However, Alima Khan says authorities have not responded and insists that the family be allowed to see him.
Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu declares a nationwide security emergency as the country scrambles to respond to a wave of mass kidnappings that have seen hundreds of people and mostly school children captured in a week.
The number of Americans applying for unemployment benefits for the first time dropped to its lowest point since mid-April last week. However, reflecting the ongoing economic uncertainty, continuing claims edged up.
Police officers and soccer fans clashed near Rio de Janeiro's international airport. The confrontation unfolded as the Mingo squad prepared to travel to Peru to face Palmeiras in the Copa Libertadores final.
The sit-in at the Gorakhpur checkpost near Adiala jail, led by Imran Khan's sister Alima Khan and Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf PTI supporters, have been wrapped up. The sit-in began after posts on social media alleged that the former Pakistani Prime Minister has been murdered in jail.
Now, speaking on a live stream on X and YouTube, Alima Khan said that there was no dialogue with authorities. She insisted that the family be allowed to meet Imran, Noreen Khan, another one of Imran's sisters. She also spoke on the media and said that the family would continue its efforts to meet the jailed ex-premier. She said that it was unfortunate that the court orders were not being implemented.
Imran Khan is facing isolations. Imran Khan's ex-account cannot run from jail. That's the diktat from Islamabad. Now, the superintendent of Adiala jail told the Islamabad High Court that the PTI founder remains under surveillance, denied access to all restricted devices, no mobile phones and no internet.
A signal jammers blanket the prison and its perimeter, shutting down any chance of unauthorized communication outside the Adiala jail. A member of the PTI founder's legal team told media how even books, essential items and access to his lawyers are being blocked.
Law of jungle prevails here, where only the beast who rules has rights. No one else has any rights.
The sit-in caused severe disruption on Adiala Jail Road before it was wrapped up. Both sides remained blocked for hours, creating a massive traffic snarl that left commuters frustrated. Ambulances and school vans were caught in the gridlock. A school van driver told reporters that anxious parents kept calling, worried about why their children had still not reached home.
All right, moving on. A surge in militant attacks and instability in northern Nigeria is driving hunger to a record level.
Now, the United Nations has projected nearly 35 million people could face severe hunger in Nigeria by the middle of next year. This is one of the highest numbers ever forecast in the country and a major increase from the 27 million experiencing it currently.
Well, the new projections come as Nigeria faces a wave of mass kidnappings that is spreading fear and reportedly pushing more people into extreme hunger. According to a report released by the UN World Food Programme, widespread violence, including banditry and terrorism, is largely driving this hunger crisis.
Humanitarian aid is also drying up fast as major donors, including the United States, have significantly cut foreign assistance, which provides food to millions of people in Nigeria.
Well, violence has escalated since the beginning of 2025 with attacks by terrorists, including Al-Qaeda affiliates, which carried out its first strike in Nigeria last month. An Islamic State West Africa province, rural farming communities have been hit the hardest, with nearly 6 million people lacking basic minimum food supplies in states of Borno, Adamawa and Yobe. While 15,000 in Borno are reportedly projected to face famine-like conditions, malnutrition rates are highest among children in Borno, Sokoto, Yobe and Zamfara. Almost 1 million people in the northeast currently rely on WFP aid, and funding shortfall forced the agency to scale down nutrition programs in July, affecting more than 300,000 children.
Here in northeast Nigeria, we are witnessing a deterioration of hunger and malnutrition. Insurgent attacks have intensified and communities are carrying the weight of this. Hunger is now reaching levels we have not seen in years. If families cannot eat and fear continues to grow, desperation will take hold. Armed groups can use that desperation to tighten their grip, putting the wider region even at greater risk.
In areas where clinics have closed, malnutrition worsened from serious to critical in the third quarter. And if this continues to prevail, WFP risks running out of funds for emergency food and nutrition aids completely by December this year. Now moving on, beneath the rugged landscapes of Ethiopia, ancient forces are constantly changing beneath the surface.
A colossal volcanic eruption in the country has ripped through the earth. Our next story explains how there is a slow but relentless tearing apart of Africa's crust. Take a look at this next report for all the details.
A silent monster is waking beneath Africa, and the continent is starting to crack. In Ethiopia, the Haile Gubi volcano erupted on Sunday. It sent a cloud of ash and smoke high into the air, prompting flight cancellations as hot clouds drifted toward other countries as far as India and China. The long-dormant Haile Gubi volcano, located in the Afar region near the Eritrean border, erupted for the first time in nearly 12,000 years.
But in this specific case, since it is Ertale range, which is Ertale is a magma lake, as you know. So the magma is not very deep, it is just close to the surface. So this eruption went off with no much earthquake activity, but it was energetic enough to cause very huge plume volcanic plume in the atmosphere.
Volcanoes, faults, and fire are rewriting the map of our planet in real time. And now, scientists say a brand new ocean is being born under our feet. A dramatic geological shift is ripping through East Africa. A tear so vast, it could redraw global geography. Deep inside Ethiopia's Afar region, one of the world's hottest volcanic zones has revealed the raw mechanics of how a continent splits. Massive fissures are carving the earth apart, and the ground is stretching like pulled dough. Over the next 5 to 10 million years, geologists project that the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden will flood the entire 6,000-kilometer-long rift system. The Horn of Africa will become a massive island continent. Landlocked nations like Uganda and Zambia will find themselves with entirely new coastlines. Scientists say the process mirrors the early stages of the Atlantic Ocean's formation. What we are witnessing today is how continents die and how new worlds are born. Even more astonishing, satellites now track Africa's slow-motion breakup by the millimeter. The rift grows every year, widening along a 3,000-kilometer fault line from Mozambique to Ethiopia. Entire nations may someday stand on opposite sides of a future sea. The Earth is moving, the map is changing, and humanity is watching the birth of a new ocean live in real time. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
The Indian rupee has fallen to fresh record lows repeatedly in recent months. And if the rupee continues to depreciate against the US dollar, India may take longer to become the world's third largest economy.
The reason the global economic size measure is listed in dollars and a weaker rupee would mean the exchange rate would offset the growth in India's output. Well, in this next report, we break down the rupee's journey since India opened up its economy in early 1990s. Take a look.
India is the fastest growing major economy. Still, the rupee has weakened significantly against the dollar. The real question is why? To understand this, one needs to look at the 3-decade journey of the Indian rupee against the US greenback. From 17 rupees per dollar in 1990 to 89 rupees in 2025, the long-term trend shows global macroeconomic changes, inflation, trade balances, and capital flows. Currencies don't move overnight. They move in response to economic trends and inflation expectations. Understanding this helps investors make better long-term decisions. By 1991, due to a severe balance of payments crisis, India undertook economic liberalization. That included a significant devaluation of the rupee to about 17.9 rupees per dollar. This change marked a shift to a more market-determined exchange rate system. The correction reflects economic reform like tariff reductions and encouragement of foreign investment that was driven by persistent inflation, large trade deficits and rising import costs such as crude oil. Inflation differentials have played a major role in rupee value. When India's inflation has been higher than that in the US, it eroded the rupee's purchasing power. The reason? One needed more rupees to buy a dollar. This persistent inflation contributed to long-term depreciation against the dollar. Other key factors impacting the currency include India's trade deficit, rising oil prices, foreign institutional investor flows, and US interest rate changes. India is particularly sensitive to international crude prices as the country imports over 85% of its oil needs and is the world's second largest consumer. Also, trade deficits increase demand for dollars to pay for imports, putting pressure on the rupee. By 2025, the exchange rate has weakened to fresh all-time lows of around 88 to 89 rupees per dollar. Short-term fluctuations are also driven by capital flows and global economic events. But currency changes mainly follow economic fundamentals over time. Therefore, India's progress towards becoming the world's third largest economy could be hindered if the rupee keeps losing value against the dollar. Business Bureau WION, World is One.
"35 US states, both Republican and Democratic, have urged Congress not to block state laws that regulate artificial intelligence, saying it would have disastrous consequences if AI is left unchecked."
Well, the Attorney General wrote in a letter that states must be allowed to protect people from harms linked to unregulated AI, including injuries, discrimination, and even death attributed to chatbot use.
Now, the letter sets up a direct clash between the US states and the Trump administration over how AI should be regulated. New York Attorney General Letitia James, who led the effort, said, and I quote, "Every state should be able to enact and enforce its own AI regulations to protect its residents." Meanwhile, tech giants including Google, Meta, OpenAI, and investor Andreessen Horowitz are pushing for a single national standard for AI regulation, arguing that different rules in different states will slow innovation and increase complexity.
Now, at the center of the fight is a new wave of AI laws set to take effect in 2026. California, which is home to many leading AI companies, has passed one of the toughest AI regulations in the country. It will require firms to disclose the data which is used to train AI models, detect AI-generated content, and explain how they will prevent extreme risk from advanced AI. Colorado has also introduced rules to stop AI discrimination in housing, education, and jobs. Well, earlier this year, the U.S. Senate voted 99-1 to remove a 10-year federal moratorium on state regulation of artificial intelligence from President Donald Trump's mega bill.
Now, the issue escalated again this week when President Donald Trump backed a move to add a provision to the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, that would block states from enacting their own AI rules. Trump has even explored using federal power to sue or defund states to stop the laws, though the plan is currently on hold.
States said in the letter that blocking their authority without a federal safety framework in place would be dangerous, and they are calling on Congress to work with them rather than against them. And India has been officially announced as the host of the 2030 Commonwealth Games.
This will be the second time India hosts the event, and it is seen as a stepping stone for the country's bid to host the Olympics in 2036.
Well, Ahmedabad has been chosen ahead of the Nigerian capital of Abuja by the governing body of Commonwealth sport.
India last hosted the Commonwealth Games in 2010. However, the Delhi Games were overshadowed by poor planning and allegations of corruption.
Now, Ahmedabad boasts the Narendra Modi Stadium, which is the largest in the world with a capacity of 132,000. The Indian government also sees the 2030 Commonwealth Games as a major step towards proving that India is capable of hosting a large-scale sporting event. The ultimate goal for India is to host the Olympics in 2036, and the Indian bid for the Olympics is also set to put forward Ahmedabad as the host city.
A wax statue of celebrated actor Gillian Anderson is set to go on display at Madame Tussauds, London. The figure is styled after her iconic appearance at the 2024 Golden Globe Awards. Take a look.
Wow. Oh my God. Oh my God. Look at my cleavage and everything. I'm really shocked. It's very exciting, and I'm incredibly honored, and I am moved and touched and completely shocked at how good it is. I mean, I thought you guys were going to do a good job because you took so many measurements, but it's really special. I was asked to choose a red carpet dress, and I feel like this dress not only made the biggest impression on the day at the Golden Globes, but also it was made by a friend of mine, Gabriella Hearst.
Well, that's all we had for you in this edition of World DNA.
But before we wrap up this bulletin, let's take a look at the climate stories making headlines across the world. Stay tuned, you're watching WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. unsolved murders, psychopaths who defy explanation, international war crimes, and millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.